This isn't the real Caesar's Palace, is it?
What do you mean?
Did Caesar live here?
No.
I didn't think so.
I went to Vegas last weekend. Pretty crazy.
Vegas, baby, Vegas!
Gentlemen, welcome to Las Vegas.
Why don't you give me half the money you were gonna bet? Then we'll go out back, I'll kick you in the nuts, and we'll call it a day.
Some guys just can't handle Vegas.
Hey there, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm happy to be your host for this podcast journey to my favorite city on the planet, fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's get started with a few bits of housekeeping. First off, I want to say hi to Alex and Lisa, aka Bombs Bits, on Twitter, who were kind enough to tweet to me this past week. They were in Vegas enjoying a lovely vacation, and after listening to my recommendations in episode number 1 of the podcast, decided to take in the National Atomic Testing Museum, which they called a great hidden gem. Thanks for reaching out, guys, and thanks for listening to the show. Hope you had a fantastic rest of your trip. Secondly, thanks to everyone who's been taking the time to do the audience survey up on the website at jeffdoesvegas.com. If you've got 5 free minutes and you want to share your thoughts and opinions on the podcast, please do so. I want your feedback, whether it's good or bad, so that I can do my best to make your podcast listening experience more enjoyable. And while you're on the website, check out the Jeff Does Vegas patron program. For as little as $1 a month, you can pledge your support on either Patreon or Podbean and have access to exclusive patron-only content, including early access to new episodes, show and interview archives, and stripped-down versions of episodes of the podcast. Finally, if you're not already doing it, be sure to give me a follow on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Jeff Does Vegas. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast absolutely free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and anywhere else you get your podcasts so you'll know the instant a new episode is uploaded. All right, enough of the housekeeping. Let's get things going. Before we dive into this episode of the podcast, it's time to get you up to speed on what's happening in Sin City with Vegas news you can use. The Little White Chapel has been a fixture in Las Vegas since 1951. The landmark has been immortalized in countless TV series and films and has been the host for several celebrity weddings, including the likes of Bruce Willis and Demi Moore, Eva Longoria and Tyler Christopher, Pamela Anderson and Rick Salomon, and Britney Spears and Jason Allen Alexander. All in all, over 1 million couples have tied the knot there since its opening, and now it's selling for $12 million. Charlotte Richards, who's owned and operated the chapel for 68 years, has decided to slow down and let someone else take over. In a recent interview, Richards says she's ready for another hopeless romantic to carry on with the chapel's legacy. The agent who's managing the sale thinks the $12 million is a bargain, considering the chapel sits on 1 acre of land in South Las Vegas Boulevard, and there's property nearby valued at roughly $30 million per acre. Apparently, several interested parties from all around the world have already reached out with potential offers. And speaking of big sales, this news coming from several sources, the Cosmopolitan is on the market. The Blackstone Group bought the resort back in 2014, sunk a ton of money into refurbishing the rooms, the restaurants, and the rest of the property, and are now apparently looking to flip it. There's lots of potential buyers out there, including MGM Resorts, who could fill the gap nicely on the west side of the Strip between Bellagio and Aria. There's also been talk that the group that currently owns the Hard Rock brand have been looking for a property on the Strip now that the existing Hard Rock off the Strip is slated to become the Virgin Las Vegas Hotel in 2020. And I simultaneously love this person and hate this person at the same time. An Arizona native hit the jackpot big time at Sunset Station Casino a little over a week ago. On Sunday, April the 14th, a hotel guest was playing IGT's Megabucks Triple Red Hot 7 slot machine when they won, get this, $13,154,723. They started playing at around 8:30 in the morning after inserting $40 worth of cash, and within 2 minutes of playing the max bet of $3, they hit the $13.1 million jackpot. The winner wishes to stay anonymous. And that's Vegas news you can use. On to the show. My guest for this episode of the podcast is John Di Domenico. John is a Vegas-based actor and performer who specializes in character impersonations. He does this on stage, on TV, in film, and at corporate conferences. He's got a roster of about 30 different characters he portrays, including Dr. Phil, Austin Powers, Dr. Evil, Guy Fieri, Ozzy Osbourne, Jay Leno, and many, many others. However, it's John's portrayal of the current president of the United States of America that's keeping him extremely busy right now. There's a very good chance that you've seen John as Donald Trump in one of his many recent appearances on Fox News, late night talk shows, online with his Facebook Watch show, The Trump Show, or in his new streaming special on Amazon Prime, Fake News, A Trump Story. John is also the voice of Donald Trump in Slate.com's Trumpcast, where he reads Trump tweets. John was kind enough to invite me to his home in Las Vegas so that we could sit down and talk. He took me around his place and I got to see, as he calls it, the operation. John showed me his loadout room where he preps and packs everything he needs for an appearance, such as wardrobe, wigs, and makeup. He showed me his voiceover booth where he records Trump tweets, and I got to see John's White House press room, complete with pillars, podium, and presidential seal. And I got to meet his assistant Madison, who helps him keep everything straight. I got to see firsthand exactly what goes into what he does. As he put it, it's not just a case of showing up somewhere and being Donald Trump or any of the other characters he portrays. It's a lot of work, honestly, way more than I ever could have imagined. John and I talked about his start in acting and character work. We talked about the changing landscape of comedy, his charity work, and his first gig headlining on the Vegas Strip in Esther Goldberg's totally outrageous brunch at the SLS. And of course, when you're talking to the best Trump impersonator in the world, you have to talk a bit of politics as well. I hope you enjoy my chat with John Di Domenico. All right. Well, first of all, John, I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome
for taking the time. This is awesome. I really appreciate you inviting me into
the inner sanctum,
behind the curtain, if you will, witnessing the operation. It's a very cool little setup. I want to start with the John Di Domenico story. Where did you start? How did you start? When did you start? You know, I mean, you've been acting pretty much your entire life.
I grew up in a row home neighborhood outside of Philadelphia, Ambler, Pennsylvania. And if you ever went to Ambler, it looks like South Philly had been towed out of Philadelphia and dropped in this town, Ambler, Pennsylvania, which is the asbestos capital of the world. It's no joke. He's being Madison. But in my neighborhood in the late 60s, before air conditioning and, obviously television was very popular, I had a severe speech impediment. But for some reason, when I did voices, Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, Henry Fonda, Ed Sullivan, it circumvented the speech impediment. And my neighbors were just impressed with this precocious kid who, would go out and perform for them. And so I got a lot of affirmation performing and laughs. I love to make people laugh to this day. And that just had me keep going and going and going. And by the time I got into first grade, they tested me and I obviously had a real speech impediment. So for the next 8 years, I did speech therapy for 2 times a week for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was a big help. And then when I got out of high school, and actually once I got out of college and I started pursuing acting, I had to go back to get accent reduction because my speech therapist was from Philly. So I had all the bad mannerisms of being like home, alone, phone, hoagie, which is great for Dr. Evil.
Right.
Hello, I'm home alone with my laser, which worked perfectly for that character, but not so much for auditions for theater in New York City.
Yeah.
Because I auditioned one time for a play and I said, I'll be home later. And the guy said, stop. He goes, I don't know where you're from. It's either Philadelphia or Baltimore, but he goes, you cannot have that accent if you want to be an actor. So I went and I had accent reduction done. So I had a plan. I was going to be an actor. No one in my family was an actor. And my plan was I was going to be a copywriter in Philadelphia, build my book, then move to New York, have an income, and pursue acting up there. Well, that never happened. So I started in Philadelphia, hated having a 9-to-5 job, being in an office. I found it actually being very unproductive. But I had joined an improv group in Philadelphia and started doing stand-up. And a friend of mine, Joey Perillo, whose birthday happens to be today, he introduced me to doing corporate work. Because I said to him at one time at a Christmas party, I need a job. He goes, you don't need a job. You're an actor. You need work. And it's a very fine distinction. You need work. You need work. It's gap work to get you to the next gig. And it was corporate work. And I started doing corporate work. And I just was like a fish to water doing it. And because I do so many characters. And back then it was Charlie Chaplin and Groucho Marx and this character and that character. And over time, one character would drop out and I would start a new character and people would start calling me and saying, hey, are you doing this character yet? Can you do this character? And I thought I could absolutely. I'll put the costume together. So that's how I kept myself working and kept pursuing work in Philadelphia and New York. And it was also what happened with Trump. I actually had an interest in Trump. But I got a call one day in 2004, and someone said, are you doing Trump yet? Because you do everybody. And I said, no, but give me a couple of hours. And at that time, in 2004, I did some quick research, and I found he was in my genetic range, and then went to that particular audition, and that was it.
So you mentioned about doing the getting the call, and somebody would ask you, do you do a character? And I know a few actors that have said, if somebody asks you if you can do something, you say yes, regardless. Can you ride a horse? Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
But you can fake riding a horse. You can't fake the voice. You know what I mean? If the voice is not in your genetic range, like Liam Neeson, that's in my genetic range. Like, wow, Chris Walken is in my genetic range, but certain people aren't. They're either too high or they're too low.
Okay.
And so you just have to find them. In fact, somebody messaged me last night and said, hey, can you do, who's the guy just from InfoWars? He just got in a lot of trouble.
Oh, is that Alex Jones?
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can do him. Because he's got, and that's not the voice, folks. Call came in last night.
Still working on it.
But I know that he's very gravelly. When he gets very upset, he gets very angry, So I thought, oh, that's well within my range.
Yeah.
So, because I've actually said early on, I said I could do somebody, and when the push came to shove, I was like, I really can't do this guy's voice. But I can ride a horse. Or shoot a gun, whatever you need.
Whatever you need.
Tie knots.
Who was the first character that you did that really kind of blew up for you?
Even professionally, or?
Professionally, or, just for fun?
Just for fun. I used to do Groucho, and I can still remember, my 5th or 6th grade teacher was just like, who is this kid? Doing adult double entendres. I didn't even know what I was saying. You know what I mean? But she was like, what the heck? And I remember her taking me around to all the other teachers. Because I came in on Halloween as Groucho, doing the voice.
Right.
And she said, oh, hold on. So she took me to the principal's office and then took me to the teacher's lounge. And I remember thinking wow, just because I'm doing this voice, I'm getting special access. Because you're in a teacher's lounge when you're in 5th, 6th grade. It's like the platinum spa.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on here? Is there a soda machine? There's a couch. So that's that. I can still plainly remember that. But my neighbors loved Ed Sullivan. Now right here on our show, because this is a time he was still alive, 5-year-old. Now we have the fabulous Garbacho brothers and the Girl Scout Troop 625. Girls, stand up and show us your cookies. Which was not his material, was mine. I wasn't writing anything. It was all John Biner and and the first album I ended up buying was David Fry's Nixon: A 4-Year Fantasy. Or I might be mangling the title, but it was the first thing I ever bought. Second thing I bought was oh my God, the comedian, the hippie dippy weather.
Carlin.
Carlin was Take Off and Put-Ons, which was a sketch album. It was not a stand-up material. And I learned really how to write sketches from that because his structures were perfect. He would do the news. He would do a game show. He would do this. And it was, when I went on to be in a comedy troupe, it really helped me. It was like the foundation between David Fry's stand-up material, which was actually very sketchy, and Carlin's sketch material, which he was never really, that wasn't really attributed to him. It was his stand-up stuff. It was really, gave me a great foundation.
Yeah. And so what was the first character that you did that was, professionally, that really? Oh,
professionally? I remember the movers in my neighborhood. I did some voices for them, but I probably did, I want to say Chaplin. I did an event in Philadelphia. Which is amazing when you think about it. They did these things. It was they call them First Friday now, but it was something for Philadelphia where Philadelphia was really trying to open the city up because it was like a suitcase town. People would be finished work and they would hit the road, and it was really to get people stay in town, go to the restaurants. So we did multiple characters, and then within a year or two. I was out of college in 86, and then around 87, 88, I started in Atlantic, because I was already doing these characters. But I got hired in Atlantic City at Trop World, which was Tropicana, where all I did was characters. And I got paid, it was a 1-year, it was 2 6-month contracts. Essentially, it was 1 year doing characters at this adult amusement pier. And it was like working out. It was like going to school every day and what characters worked and what characters didn't. I would say to the entertainment director, I'd like to introduce a new character. So I would introduce, like an old guy who was a Diamond Club member of the Tropicana Hotel. Why is the buffet line so long? I want to eat now. And they were like, that's hilarious. So, and I would do Columbo and I would do Groucho and I would do, it was great. It was a great, because you had to do it like 6-7 hours a day. So you really perfected the characters.
And as far as developing characters, what's your process like for the impersonation characters? You could probably teach a master class.
Probably.
In developing, from start to finish, how to sort of create that character and make it your own.
The way I look at it is because so much of my work is corporate. I look at wow, I'll use Guy Fieri. Wow, this guy came out of nowhere. And physically, he's close to me, and he stands out, because he's got the platinum, the dyed hair, and the glasses, and the bling, and the this and the that. And then, you listen to his voice, baby. I'm driving the bus to Flavor Town, baby. Love, peace, and taco grease. And check out the physicality of him. And I was thinking, wow, I wonder if this guy is going to break through. He's kind of interesting. And then he got Minute to Win It. And I think it ran for 2 seasons on NBC. And that put him to the national level. There's so many components now to doing a character because I obviously have to be physically close to them. I need to sound like them. The wigs and things like that I can have made. But they have to be at a level where people recognize who they are.
Right.
Because one of the things I'm dealing with now, I mentioned Charlie Chaplin and Groucho Marx. When I was a kid growing up in the late 60s, early 70s, my cultural history went back to the turn of the century, to the silent era. I knew who Chaplin was. I knew who Buster Keaton was. I knew who Harold Lloyd was. I knew who all those guys were because I love them. And, I'd come home from school and there would be a special about that. Or there would be the $1 Million Movie, and it was Humphrey Bogart in These Desperate Hours, which was the inspiration for the Bruce Willis film, Nakatomi Plaza.
Die Hard, yeah.
Die Hard. So all these things, so it really informed me about filmmaking and entertainment culture and things like that. So it was like 100. My cultural history was 100 years old. Well, now cultural history in this country is maybe 2 weeks.
Yes.
You have my nieces and nephews who are in their 20s. They don't even watch linear television.
Yeah.
And they're not big moviegoers because they don't need to be.
Right.
So, and then you have Netflix, and then you have Snapchat, and then you have Instagram, and then you have YouTube, and then you have this thing where it's so fractionalized. There's very few characters that are breaking through, And for me, I'm lucky with Trump in that he's kind of a brand crusher. He cuts across everything. Everyone knows who he is. And, luckily I started doing him back in 2004. But the thing now is, because people call me all the time, like, who you working on? Who you working on? I'm like, you tell me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Rich Little's still doing exact from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But I don't have, for what I do, I need new characters. There's nobody in the news world. There's nobody in pop culture. Movie stars are so milquetoast. It's very interesting because and Trump's literally sucking the oxygen out of pop culture.
Right.
So I would, people ask me all the time, and I don't know who to do because there's no one really standing out. If I'm doing a corporate event, they're not necessarily, if you're 35, you may not know who that person is. Or if I'm doing a comedy club audience, if 50% of the audience doesn't know who I'm doing, you know what I mean? You got to have a buy-in at some level.
Yeah. Like you said, you bring up a great point as far as the pop culture end. Like when it pains me to realize that Austin Powers is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
21 years ago.
Yeah. 97.
So, wow. You know, so
it's a brilliant character.
Yeah. And so a character like that is right in my wheelhouse as a 43-year-old who, loved that movie and watched it a bajillion times. So I can see how going into a corporate event and doing it 20 years ago, some of those new reps, they don't know.
Right. And now, I'm actually doing him at the Bacardi meeting, but when we were sitting down and going over the audience, I was like, what's the demographic of the audience? And they said, well, they're distributors and they're mid to late 40s. And I was like, perfect. That gives me a lot of, that was great. They would know who these characters are because I either go in and do it as myself or the characters, which I love. I love that I can do that. So, but to go back to your initial question, there's just a criteria. There's stuff I do for myself.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like doing rolling voices around in my head. And I'll hear someone I know doing a voice and think, can I do that voice? Can I do him? That's interesting. So, because, all right, hi, I'm Owen Wilson. How are you? Okay, cool. All right. Wait, in my own mind, am I doing him or am I doing Wayne from Wayne's World? All right, excellent. Hi, I'm Wayne Campbell from Aurora, Illinois. Excellent. Swing.
Yeah.
They all start running together.
Yeah. Well, it starts, like you say, all of a sudden it's Owen Campbell.
It's Owen Campbell. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Trump is obviously running your life right now.
Yeah.
Figuratively and literally on many different levels.
It's crazy.
You said you started doing Trump in 2004. Was that was for a corporate gig or was that just...
No, believe it or not, it was I got a call for a voiceover. And I have to give you a little bit of background. I've always been fascinated in Trump because I am a weird mix of being an actor and a business person, which you probably can tell from the little tour that we did. But in the mid-'80s, all of the big business people in the U.S. Were starting to die off. The Astors and the Vanderbilts and this thing and that thing. Like John D. Rockefeller, I think, was still alive. And there was nobody left, but these are the people who kind of built this country. And then Trump in 87, and I'd already been following him because he was the only one who was kind of standing out other than like Leona Helmsley. But Trump wrote Art of the Deal in 87, and he said, I'm the biggest builder in New York City. So, but the thing was, he wasn't. He wasn't even like 100th at that time. But I actually have the book from 1987. My ex-wife at the time gave me the book and wrote a little inscription in the book and said, I don't like him. I don't like what he stands for, but I know you wanted this book. So my first wife, Donna. And I just thought that was so funny to have it to this day. But he just kind of stood up and it was like, it's kind of like when you look to New York, like there's that person standing there. This is my city. What do you think? So, so I had always, followed him and just thought he was interesting and just, he's a fascinating guy. He's really a fascinating guy. And then in 89 and 90, I started working in Atlantic City.
Right in his backyard.
Right in his backyard. Yeah. And I actually, in 90, we were doing Tony and Tina's wedding. We had spun off from New York. We were in Philadelphia. And when we were done in Philadelphia, I think we ran for like 9 months. And we went to Atlantic City. So we worked in Atlantic City. And I'd already worked in Atlantic City before that, before Tony and Tina's wedding, so I was very aware of him from the time he wrote the book, and then right after that, because that's when I started there. So he was kind of a weird presence in my life. So we did the show there for a couple of months. Met him then. It was like an open secret. Like Marla Maples was living in the hotel. It was very, very interesting. So then, time goes by, he's still in AC, and you hear once you start working in Atlantic City, it's like working in Las Vegas. You kind of keep up with it, like, oh, this is closing and this is opening, and, there was always something happening, and then he left Ivana, and Ivana was running the castle, and I had a friend working at the castle. So he's just kind of there. He's kind of a presence. And I was, always toying with his voice and trying to figure out, how to do it. And Phil Hartman did him on SNL, and it was very interesting because SNL, he was really a New York kind of thing. It was very New York centric, but they did a couple of sketches, and then Daryl Hammond did a few sketches, and then 2004 was the first year of The Apprentice, or he would say The Apprentice, and the show blew up, and I got a call. And they said, you do a lot of voices. Do you do Donald Trump? This is for a voiceover. And it was like a Friday. And I told them, give me an hour. And I said, yes, I can do it. I ran out. And literally the DVD, the whole first season came out. And I locked myself in the house and went to that audition on a Monday. And I got it. And it turned out it was for the boardroom game at Trump Taj Mahal. I was supplying the voice.
Oh, wow.
So that was the first time. And then I did a number of other voiceovers, car dealerships. It was really hot. And then one of the people who I worked for a lot at the time said, are you doing Trump full, top to bottom? And I said, no. And they said, what's it for? And it's about a month. They want Trump to do The Apprentice. I was like, you take that. Take it. They said, do you have any photos or anything? I was like, not right now. So I was always in New York, went to Bob Kelly. Bob Kelly did all the wigs for Saturday Night Live, all the wigs for all the Broadway shows. He was older by this time, but he had innovated so many things. I said, Bob, and he was a great guy. I just want everyone, Bob Kelly was an amazing guy, very supportive of actors. So I said, I need a Trump wig, and how much would it be? And he was like, $7,000. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, looks like a car. And he said, do you have anything close? And he said, oh, actually, I have the Trump wig from the Visa commercial. I said, you have what? Because he just shot a Visa commercial where he has a Visa card and it blows out of his head and ends up in a dumpster. And we had to make one for his body double to go into the dumpster. And he walked me over to her and like, there is this wig. I'm like, oh my God. He said, how much is this? And he said, well, I'll give it to you for $5. I was like, that's still way too much. But he let me do, 450 installments. So I paid it off in pieces. But that wig really did end up paying off itself. I was like in 2006, I was like one of the only people in the country doing Trump. Mm-hmm. And I had his wig from the Visa commercial. And I'd already done his voice and I'd already met him. So I had this weird kind of like connection. And then, then it's just one job after the next, after the next. And what I always do is if I can sell a character, how can I sell it more? Mm-hmm. So on my website, it was Donald Trump roasts, Donald Trump national sales meetings, Donald Trump The Apprentice game, which is scalable. And I do that with it doesn't matter if it's Columbo or Austin Powers, because as a business person, if I'm going to start doing this character, I need a way to sell him in multiple ways.
Sure.
So obviously there's doing a walk around as him and all that. So I was constantly doing him, always doing him. Then in 2008, I booked a movie in LA. And it's just been this nonstop. And I've made sure I've sold him because he is one of the few iconic business people that's so identifiable. Sure, I could have done Bill Gates, but who cares about
Right.
Bill Gates?
Yeah.
You know, you have somebody like Trump who is known for if I and saying the things that he said, which was totally unfiltered. So that's how I made sure I sold the character constantly. If we did a meeting with anybody, if we're doing Austin for the opening, I said, well, how about Trump for the annual review on sales or something like that? They're like, that's great. Or how about the award show where he roasts the top executives? So that's how I made sure he was constantly sold into these meetings and was out there. And so when he announced, and you can do this now, if you Google Donald Trump impersonator, I'm #1.
Yeah.
Because I just had this really long runway of doing him.
So when he announced, for you, was that just like, oh, Merry Christmas to me?
No. And here's why. Because 4 years before, he was toying with it.
Yeah.
He was really toying with it. And he sticks his foot in, he pulls his foot out. He sticks his foot in, and he was actually here 4 years before the last election cycle, and he started dropping F-bombs at this conservative women's group, Republican, and I remember, and a friend of mine from CNN had called me and said, he's pulling out today, NBC's pressuring him for another season or something like that.
Right.
And that when he started cursing, I was like, yeah, he's done. And he announced like a day later, I wanted to run, but NBC, blah, blah, blah. So he was out. But when he came down the escalator this time, I was like, this does seem different. This seems different. And it was within like a week of that, when it was for real, that's when the phone started ringing. That day, though, everyone and their mother was reaching out to me.
Right.
It was crazy. Because everyone knew I'd done him, and I've done him for so long. But I was like, chill, hold on. Because I figured he was going to drop out. And then after the John McCain thing, I thought, oh, wow. Well, that was a good run. We had a good month. Was a month? Was a month? About a month, everybody? Did you have a month? And then his numbers went up. And I went, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
He's counterintuitive. And that's when, then Conan called, and then Trumpcast called, and then all these other things started happening, and it just kind of snowballed. And this was 2015. And then I just started crisscrossing the country doing events and meetings and TV stuff and ticketed events. And I could see overwhelmingly audiences were for Trump. They were for Trump. It was always 2/3, always 2/3. I would do stuff in LA and it was for Trump. I was like, well, that's weird. Doesn't make sense. In the May of 2016, I did an event in New York, which should have been Clinton country. And it was overwhelmingly Trump. And that August, the BBC flew me to D.C. for an interview outside the White House. Unfortunately, not inside the White House. But they said, who do you think will win? I said, Trump. Trump's going to win. He's going to win in a landslide. I was wrong about the landslide part, but he did win. And it's just been this amazing ride, because I really thought I knew once he got in, once the policies took place, it would take a little bit of a hit. Because it's one thing when you don't have any policies behind you. It was great. Once the policies took place, things started getting a little tougher. But we've had these spikes, like after he was cleared and exonerated.
Totally exonerated.
Totally exonerated. No obstruction. There was a bump. So there's always something happening. And I talked with showrunners. I was flown out to LA for meetings with studio people. So many amazing things happened. And then 2 weeks ago, I was in Brussels, in Belgium, and I spoke as Trump in front of the European Parliament. I'm like, what the hell? And then I got a call through a buddy of mine. He said, do you know? And I'm fascinated by showrunners. And I got a call through a buddy in L.A. And he said, do you know who Jill Soloway is? And I said, absolutely. She's the showrunner of Transparent. She goes, she'd like to talk to you. I was like, wow. And I got so many, I've been on Conan. I've met Conan. I've been on the show over 50 times. I was on Fox News with my buddy who I did theater with in the early 90s, Tom Shalhoub. On Red Eye, I was on Fox and Friends 4 different times. So, and I don't look at, one of the things I've done in this process is I don't look at things politically anymore.
Right.
To me, it's just all entertainment.
Right.
There's no left, there's no right. This is just all TV and film, and it's, otherwise I would get, because one of the things I try to do, and I hopefully do in Totally Outrageous Brunch and all of my stuff, is I want to appeal to the entire audience. I want to entertain the entire audience. I don't want to alienate anyone.
Right.
I don't get why somebody would alienate half their audience before they walk out on stage. That doesn't make sense to me.
So you did The View, and that was they did it was a Trump impersonator contest. It was a search for the world's best Trump impersonator
for the Nationals.
Okay.
And then I won that, and then I went on to the Internationals at Laugh Factory. We had people from Iran, Mexico, Poland, New Zealand, Iran. It was crazy.
What does an Iranian Trump impersonator look and sound like?
Well, he looks like an Iranian with a beard and a very bad $25 toupee. But it was the guy from New Zealand was really good.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how to go from being one of the few people who's ever done him to there's a factory somewhere pumping out Trump impersonators.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Bad makeup, bad wigs, bad hats, hello everybody, I'm Donald Trump, it's yes. I'm like, oh my God. And then Baldwin gets Saturday Night Live. I'm like, what the hell? For the love of God. But he, what I find it infuriating about him is he's so funny.
Yeah.
His Tony Bennett is so funny, but he's purposely doing a crappy Trump.
Right.
Like on purpose. He's doing a ham-fisted, I don't know. I'm like, ugh. But it works, obviously, because, a lot of comments I get on this guy's funny, but not as good as Alec Baldwin. I'm like, oh my God. Jesus.
Do you find with Trump that there's people that maybe they just don't get the joke?
Oh, yeah. I get it from both sides. I've gotten death threats. But there's people who on the left who give me a hard time for doing him because they feel I'm promoting him.
Right. And
then there's people on the right who are like, feel I'm teasing him and leave the president alone. Hey, you liberal scumbag, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you don't know I've been on, it's like, I have to explain to people. I've been on Fox News, like 50, Roger Ailes vetted me. It's like, really? I just find it amazing. You can't please everybody. I've been very lucky though, and if you've seen my performances, I've had people come up to me after Monday's Dark and performances here at SLS who say like, I'm a big Trump supporter. And I thought this was great, and I'm going to tell my friends about it, and that's great. And I've had people walk up to me, I cannot stand Trump, but I like your Trump. And I did a security show out in Denver, and I had a Muslim woman come up to me who had is it the hijab or I never went. So she came up to me before, and I was at the booth for the company that hired me before I went into the main general session. She goes, I don't like you. I don't like you. And I said, okay, good. And I said, you're going to love me. You're going to love me. Make sure you're in the general session. And after the general session, she made a point to come back to the booth and says, I like your Trump. I like your Trump. Well, the other weird thing is I have, especially before the election, I became like an avatar for him, where people would come up to me and say, I'm voting for you. I'm voting for you. They didn't say they're voting for Trump. They'd say they're voting for me. And I did SEMA, which is the big aftermarket show.
Right.
It's like 150,000 people. We had a line outside of my booth. And it was like confessional. People lined up. First they wanted a photo, but what they would tell me, I was just like, it was amazing. It was just absolutely amazing what people would say to me. And that was one of the indications that I thought he was going to win, because I had people say, I haven't let anybody know, but I'm voting for you. And I heard that over and over. And some of the other stuff, I had a woman say something to me one time. I melted my brain. Because she was like, you're a man. That Obama, he's a big P word, So I was like, okay.
Wow.
I was like, of course he is. He's a loser. Total loser.
I was, not to get political, and I mean, as a Canadian, we just kind of sit back and go, we eat our all-dressed chips and just watch the world burn happening south of the border. And I remember being down here in the October before the election and talking with some friends down here, and I was just like, what are you people doing? Like, what is going on? And everyone's like, nah, he's not going to win. And the whole time I kept saying, you can't count out the crazy vote, as I always like to say. Yeah. And then, 2 months later, I was back down here again talking to my friends. I'm like, the shit did you people do? Like, how?
People were really frustrated. They were, and it just shows you how, someone like Trump, who just doesn't go by any rules, so he's not hemmed in. And he wasn't hemmed in on a voting record.
Right.
So he could say anything. But, I had October of 2016, I was with somebody from the Washington Post, from the New York Times. We were out to dinner, and another political person. And I said, he's going to win. And they're like, John, you're wrong. I said, he's going to win. And they said, you're saying that it's strictly anecdotal. And I said, I'm in front of 1,200 people, 3,000 people at a time. I said, I don't know who you're polling, but your polling's wrong. Because I sense it. I can tell. And they were like, boy, did they. Way off. But, so where do I go from here is kind of like the next question. The good thing about Trump is people would say to me all the time, like, what if he doesn't win? I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah.
Because he'll be on the sidelines bitching and moaning. Now people are like, we literally have had bookings where they would book me as Trump, and then 2 weeks later, HR is not allowing us to. Do you have another character? Yeah, luckily I have like 30. So we'll put in Leno or this character or Austin or Dr. Phil or something. But it's very interesting how the wind blows. But even when I was in Brussels, people came up to me, behind the scenes and said, I really like Trump. These are Europeans. Like they know strongmen.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Has doing Trump gotten you in trouble other than the death threats that you mentioned previously?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just been, I think one of the reasons is I don't come out, I'm not staking I'm not saying I'm pro or I'm not saying I'm anti. I'm just one of the things for me is I'm an actor, so I try to bring the character to life the way I was trained as an actor, which is you have to like the character. If you don't like the person you're doing, it kind of creates an internal disconnect, and people can sense that. That's one of the things with Alec Baldwin, you can say, he hates him. He says it all the time.
Right.
So, but some of the other people who do Trump, I want to make it as authentic as possible, but not be pro or con. So I've been very, very lucky in that respect. We get you can't help also, the funny thing is, I remember when I put up an Ozzy Osbourne video, and boy, holy cow, you think I got ripped apart on that one. And it wasn't the impersonation. It was just, oh, could you, man? And the names that they called me. I was like, it was the first time I was really ever experienced the whole trolling thing.
Over an Ozzy impression?
Over an Ozzy impression, because he's kind of like a god. So, but I am amazed how people take things wrong, and it's interesting. One person can say one thing and it sets a premise which is not connected to what you're seeing in a video.
Sure.
And that person, everyone answers that one individual. Like, he shouldn't do that because of X, or he should be allowed to do Trump because of X, or, you know what I mean? It's like, no, I'm not having I'm not being withheld from doing Trump. It's amazing how, because there's no real talk back.
Sure.
There's a thing, working with Ricky Lax on a project, and we're doing, it's called The Trump Show, and on Facebook. It's on Facebook Watch. And we've done a couple of different things, and the response has been really amazing. And sometimes we might push it in one area, and then people lose their minds. It's like, you have to take it as a whole.
Right.
It can't just be one thing. I just find it amazing how people are so touchy on these things. Like, it's comedy, folks. I'm really not the president.
Yeah.
Take it easy. This isn't a policy statement.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned about, the whole this is comedy, because you see that so often, and I'm not generally one to, I don't want to invoke the snowflake clause.
Right.
But you see that people are offended by literally everything. And
anything.
And
everything.
anything.
And the funny thing is, someone will make a comment. And because I follow this stuff, obviously, it's like the Somerset Magnum's razor's edge. I'm literally walking the razor's edge. But somebody will make a comment, a comedian doesn't matter who it is. And maybe comedian's not the best person to use. They'll make a comment. And one person who has 35 followers says, I can't believe you said that people who like cats that are overweight, like gay, blah, blah, blah. That thing catches fire. And that just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And it's kind of like, oh my God, it's like if one single person's outraged, then everyone has to stand behind them and be outraged too. Yeah. There's a certain point where you've got to, at least for comedians, not politicians, elected officials, you've got to give them some kind of a leeway. Like, so-and-so's a drunk. How dare you come down on people who are alcoholics? It's like, I didn't say it was not, you know what I mean? It's like there's no way to word stuff. You have to parse your words so much that they'll lose their comedic impact.
Right.
But there's plenty of stuff I've gone to put on Twitter, and I thought, oh, yeah, I better hold off on that. Because there's no way for me to control. If it's in a comedy club, and you know this, even comedy clubs, things have gotten out of control. But you can't help how someone interprets something.
Right.
Things have changed. And I get that, and you can't bash, overweight people or this or there are legitimate things. But at some point, if you constrict every avenue, there's no place to go comedically.
Right. Yeah. Some of my favorite. I'm a big fan of British comedy, and I love guys like John Cleese who have come down hard on the whole comedy has to be politically correct thing, and guys like Ricky Gervais who. Gervais's whole thing is F 'em.
Right.
Seriously, this is, if you don't like it, scroll past it, change the channel, be done. That's, if you don't like what I'm saying on my Twitter, then F you, too bad.
Right. And conversely, and I love both of those guys, and Monty Python was a big influence, but both of those guys have a huge infrastructure of success where they can do that. And, he took a lot of heat for the Golden Globes. And, funny's funny. I just ripped Robert Downey and Anna Hayes. And it, hey. The thing is, if you're on the lower end, your career can be destroyed overnight. And I hate that this is not the best example, but someone like Kathy Griffin, which I still cannot figure out what she was thinking with the decapitated head. I was kind of like, what was your best outcome on that? Like, what were you thinking would be the best thing that would happen from this?
Right.
Because you're going to infuriate people. Just infuriate them and upset them, and and that becomes a chain reaction because there are people. We all need to. One thing I can't stand is hypocrisy, and there's a lot of hypocrisy going on right now.
Yeah.
So there are people who know that they drew a line and they have to stand by that, and as well they should. I was like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, what is where? And even as where is the funny part in this?
Yeah.
I'm always amazed. So there are real things going on, but there are other things that are fake, and there's a lot of fake outrage on both sides. I'm always amazed by it's like everybody's just gotta relax. If a professional comedian's doing it, that's one thing. And then the other thing is you have people who've never stood in front of an audience, put in the time, doing stand-up, performing anything, who are internet comedians. And who do say things, and you're kind of like, that wasn't too smart of an idea, pal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know where they're coming from.
Right.
But they have an enormous following. So we're in a strange time in that respect.
Speaking of Twitter, I mean, Trump is the king of Twitter.
Yeah.
Every day that he tweets something, again, for you, is it just like, Merry Christmas?
Yeah, absolutely. And, every speech he gives, he gave the national, the thing that he did in front of the green bush thing, like the windmill thing.
Oh, yeah.
The windmill.
Oh, my
that
God,
that was 1 hour and 90 minutes. His CPAC speech was 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And what I have to do, because we do Totally Outrageous Brunch every week, I update it every week because the ship has already sailed in a week.
Right.
People don't even remember because it's like the next thing. It's like waves hitting a beach. And then you've got the tweets, which thank God, I do the tweets for Trumpcast and for Planet America because at least they're recorded. They're laid down in stone.
Right.
Comedically, because what I love to do is just bring them to life. But a lot of times you can tell if it's 5 o'clock in the morning, he's not happy. He didn't sleep that night. What is happening with the windmills? They're causing cancer and killing all the birds. Horrible windmills. And now we have to wear wooden shoes. I don't want to live there. It's like, it's just the logical, you start here and end here, and it's going to be something incredibly funny. And this stuff's funny to begin with.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's really at the point where you could just take his speeches and read them.
Yeah.
Like verbatim.
Yeah.
Without having to do any writing yourself.
It's true because he one of the things was, and he had said this a long time ago, and people don't remember this. He had said he wanted to be an actor. He kind of wasn't sure where he was going to go because he is a showman. So he ended up, working for his father. But when you watch him do CPAC, when you watch him do these 90 minutes, these are stand-up acts. This has nothing to do with policy. He's talking, what he said the other day, you go down to the border, these people are crossing the border, they look like MMA fighters. They've got the tattoos, they're all built up, they're super strong. You think and then they show the family, it's like, no, that's not even true. But it's funny. It's funny. He's doing illusions, which a comedian does. He's alluding to something. He's building an image. I just think it's fascinating how he does it.
And you've met people from the Trump camp. I've seen photos on your Facebook.
Oh, yeah, I've met Kellyanne.
Yeah.
And, one of the things about being at Fox, I've gotten to meet a lot of those people, And
how do they take it? I mean,
Kellyanne was very nice. And Trump knew who I was before. There's this weird story where he thought I died. It's kind of complicated. But Kellyanne, long story. Kellyanne was super sweet. She goes, oh, my God, can I get a selfie with you because the president knows who you are, because I'd already been on Fox countless times.
Sure.
So he was fully aware of who I was. So we had a great photo together, and she was very nice. I don't judge anybody by their TV personas or what they. Everyone's got to do what they have to do.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's too easy to hate somebody. But when you meet somebody in person, they're very nice. I did Trump's 55th birthday. He's like a charisma machine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was literally, we were at the castle, and it was 55th birthday, and I was hosting with him. I was doing Austin Powers, and he was literally outside the door, and you could feel his presence. I mean, he was the king at the time. He had 3 casinos. He was making money, all that kind of stuff. It was just he's just a fascinating guy. And I've met super wealthy people. I did an unofficial inaugural party in Boca Raton for one of Trump's friends. And at that event were 6 billionaires. And I get to meet all these guys, and they were so nice. And I remember thinking that guy's a billionaire.
Yeah.
This guy is a billion. You would know who these people if I said their names. It was just oh my God. You know what I mean? It's I'm struggling. At the supermarket. Should I get 2 jars of spaghetti sauce or 1? Well, okay, I'm gonna get 1. I'm gonna hold off.
Yeah. It's a generic brand mac and cheese this week. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've worked with a lot of millionaires because you work and live in New York, but when you think someone's a billionaire, it's that's insane. That's an insane amount of money.
Wow.
And they're super nice and they're very charismatic. They're obviously smart people. They've gotten to where they are. I just find it just amazing.
You do a lot of charity work too.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody that follows you on Twitter and on Facebook has seen your photos going out and doing different charity events. Do you have any that are really close to you?
I love, there's New Vista is here in Las Vegas, and I've done a lot with them. They deal with intellectually handicapped, people with Down syndrome. They are kind of a campus where the kids and young adults, and actually some older adults, who can live and function in these small houses where they can be independent. And it's just such a wonderful organization. And you could have this in other places in the country. You couldn't have it in New York and Philadelphia because it's great that they lay them out. There's space is what I mean. These are, not that there aren't these places there, but they can have space. They're in a safe environment. They're in a outdoor environment in North Las Vegas. Today I'm donating some time for the CASA Foundation, which is court-appointed special advocates for abused and neglected kids, which is a wonderful organization. So anytime anything comes up, and obviously you have to be careful. You just can't go to an organization. You have to be vetted.
Sure.
But everything we work for is vetted in advance. My girlfriend, Michelle, sits on boards of multiple organizations. There's a great organization here run by Mark Chinook called Monday's Dark. And what Mark has done is remarkable. And I've gotten to work for a bunch of different organizations. They takes all the entertainers who are dark on Monday nights, and they choose a charity. And it's chosen well in advance. And 2 Mondays a month, we go in and do a full show. So I've gotten to do Trump and Austin Powers and Dr. Evil, and then that money, they raise at least 10 grand, like a minimum of 10 grand. Plus there's a silent auction. One of the things I discovered moving here is this is an incredibly philanthropic town. People are really concerned about a lot of different things. And there's so many organizations, and it opened my eyes to these organizations that need obviously they need money, but they need awareness too that they exist. So whatever I can do, and that the organization's been vetted and they're for real. Don't want to get burned.
Yeah.
You never know. It might be Dr. Evil's organization. That's right, baby. Yeah, baby.
So. Why Vegas and not L.A.?
That's a great question. I was I was in New York, New Jersey, New York, back and forth. And I was doing a job in San Diego, and I was flying home one day, and we punched through the clouds at Newark. It was rainy, it was cold, and I was like, why am I here again? Why? And it's super expensive. And I looked at Orlando for like 9 seconds, and then looked at a couple other places. And of course, LA came up, and I had spent time in LA, and it isn't appealing to me on a lot of levels. There's no place you can go where it's central. You can't get to anything. Though I will say Burbank is a great town. But I looked at LA, and I had already spent some time there. And then a friend of mine was connected here with Cirque. She was in the wardrobe department, and she said, "What about Las Vegas?" And I was like, "Really, Las Vegas?" Because I didn't see myself as a Las Vegas guy, so New York or LA.
Sure.
She said, "Are you working here soon?" Because I was, at that time, I'd probably be in town 4 or 5 times a year. I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Tack on a couple of extra days." And she showed me around, and like anything, like Bourbon Street and New Orleans, like she got me off the strip.
Yes, yeah.
And she showed me around and took me to restaurants and took me to places and took me out here to Henderson. I was like, oh, this is a real town.
Yeah.
With real people.
Yeah.
And I made the move here, and it's the single best move I've ever made. This is obviously an entertainment town, but the entertainment community here welcomed me with open arms. In New York, everyone's great. They're doing their own thing, though. There's support, but not a lot. You have your friends. Los Angeles, they want to stick a knife in your back. You know what I mean? You show up an audition with your friend. How did you find out about this?
Yeah.
Don't let anybody in here. You know what I mean? It's really territorial. But when you get here, because everyone's from somewhere else and everyone has kind of a more diverse set of skills, everyone's really helpful. And I cannot believe the people that I've met here, the celebrities, because you end up, it's such a small town socially, it's such a small town geographically, that you just end up with these people.
Yeah.
If it sounds like Jerry Seinfeld, with these people. But it's really that way. And I've met Rich Little, and I got to meet Gordy Brown, and I got to meet some of the other really great impersonators here in town, because they'll be at a holiday party, or a friend of a friend knows them, and or somebody else is here in town shooting a movie, and they're, hey, we're going, so and so's in here in town, we want to bring you over to meet him. You're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And one of my friends here in town is, like CEO of a corporation he happens to be from New York. And I probably wouldn't be friends with him in New York because we wouldn't run in the same circles.
Right.
But the fact that I lived in New York and he's from New York and we just became friends. So it's kind of, Las Vegas is unique in that it democratizes everything and levels everything.
Right.
And it's great. And the guys who are producing Totally Outrageous Brunch, they're New Yorkers. And Michael Arlington, who is our lead in the show, he plays Esther. He's a well-known comedian, has worked all over the world. And Ann Martinez, who was in Baz, I'm working with her. So it's like, holy cow! Like I got into the show with all these amazing people on a show on the Strip. If it would take me decades to get to the equivalent in New York. It's just because there's so many people and there's so many roadblocks ahead of you. There's so many walls you have to get over. Here it's like it is much more supportive, and people introduced me to Michael early on in the process. Where that may have definitely wouldn't happen in LA. It may have not happened in New York, but here it is a small group, and everyone wants everyone to succeed, which is pretty amazing. And that's why I think it's a very philanthropic town. Everyone wants to perform. It's a lot of performers, and they want to help. And Nelson Sardelli, who is an actor, comedian, when I first got here, he knew that I did characters. He said, will you come out to the Veterans Administration Hospital and perform for these guys? I was like, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that day, and I thought it was very loose. I thought that show was very loose. I went there, and like major Las Vegas performers were there. I was like, holy cow. Like, I should have dressed up a little. I should have prepared more, because that was going to be very loose. And then, subsequent years, I was like, okay, I'm doing full makeup and doing the character. And,
Yeah, that's the thing. It's interesting that you say that. And everybody that I've talked to from this town, and I do, anywhere between 5 and 7 trips a year down here, and I've gotten to know Mark, and through Mark,
Mark's awesome.
So many different people,
and super talented, and a great actor, great guy.
Yeah,
but he's a Broadway guy.
Yeah,
it's a Broadway, and his wife Cheryl, another Broadway. I got I mentioned a buddy of mine was coming in to produce a show, a corporate show, and I said she's great. You got to talk to her, and he ended up booking her.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of talent here.
There's so much talent, and I as a chubby Canadian kid who just comes down here to vacation, it's been interesting to get to know all these people and get to meet people and finding out, like you say, how everybody is so interconnected. Yeah. And it's such a small universe. The only thing I've ever experienced even close to that, I worked in radio for almost 20 years, and Canadian radio, it's like everybody knows everybody. Yeah. So same thing, you really... It's this incestuous little group of people. And like everybody's so friendly, and everybody's so genuine, and everybody's so just amazing. Yeah. And so welcoming. And as, like I say, as an outsider that just comes down, and it's like every time I'm coming down, I'm getting together with these people and going out, and they've been able to expand my horizons too as a tourist. Going off the Strip.
There's a lot. There's much more here than meets the eye. Yeah. But the thing is about it being a small town, and everyone truly is nice, because if you turn out to be a jerk, or you screw anybody here, you're done. Yeah. It's too small. Yeah. It's too small, and that's someone just got blacklisted for good reason. And it was just one of these things where it's like, wow, because if it was New York or LA or in Chicago, it wouldn't matter. They would just kind of float out into another group. You can't do that here. It's so interconnected. The entertainers know the actors, and the actors know the singers, and the singers know all the producers, and the producers know everybody. And we all know the guys who run the showrooms. You know what I mean? We know the people. We know people from Ka. We know this, and it's very, like you said, it's incestuous, and it's kind of interlocking. So it almost holds you to a higher standard. Right. That you if you're a supportive person, you want to be more supportive. If someone's in the hospital, you want to make sure you visit them because it's that small. You don't want to. It's kind of an external pressure,
Right.
But I'm sure like Chris Phillips, Zoe Bowen.
Yeah.
I knew his wife first, and we became friendly because she's like a very political person, and then I got to meet him, and then it's just it's really cool. And I also belong to a through someone like Nelson Sodelli, like have you been to the Italian American Club?
No.
Oh my God, you've got to go there and see a show. You've got to go there and see a show. It's great shows, great audiences, and it's on Sahara. And when you're there, you feel like you're back east or Chicago or somewhere like that because great entertainment, but just great crowds.
Let's talk about Esther Goldberg's Totally Outrageous Brunch. This is your first Vegas show?
My first Vegas show.
And it's been a great experience?
It's been an incredible experience. SLS has been amazing. Our producers have been great. Michael had this vision for this show, which was essentially a variety show, but to have some kind of a connective tissue that brought it all together. And we've been able to do that. We've got, great support from the hotel. We have a great band. Dennis Blair's in our band, Aaron Fuller. But I wanted, I had mentioned Ann Martinez, who's been in like so many production shows here, who is an amazing singer, who's an amazing actress, who's an amazing comedian, who's an amazing aerialist. She's also our director. She's a great director. She knows music inside and out. We have Michael and April, who are the other two aerialists in the show. We have Jeffrey, who plays. I can't explain exactly what he does because it's kind of a cool character. He's just he's a singer in the show, and he does some physical elements. And then we have Matteo Bouliou from France, and he does this amazing not aerial but acrobatic gymnastic set in the show. So you've got comedy, you've got music, you've got gymnastics, you've got acrobatics, you've got all of this stuff in the show, and it all ties together around Esther. And Michael is hilarious as this character and does improv as the character. Trump and she interact because you find out they had a history together back in the 70s.
Right.
So it's all pulls together beautifully, and there's great, really good food. So I'm excited to be in this room where Monique performs and Eddie Griffin performs, and we're doing our show. We've gotten great reviews, and it's been really solid. And it's nice to have a show that you can consistently go to week after week after week.
Well, and it's nice to see new shows coming up in Vegas, especially with the last few years has just been, I don't want to use the term bloodbath because that sounds terrible, but with the number of shows that have shut down or closed, or shows that were big, shows like Baz that, really had a big, a decent following.
Yeah.
And
a name. Like Baz is a name.
And, like Rock of Ages that went Venetian to over to the Rio, and just and all the little shows that have opened and closed and opened and closed and all these different things. So it's great to see a property investing in a show and, really promoting it, actively promoting it, and people are coming out, and the crowds, it sounds like the crowds are good.
Crowds are good. And, the thing is, you mentioned those shows closing. The show just closed at the Excalibur.
Oh, the Fuerza Bronte.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
I love that show. And I had seen it in New York like 12 years ago when it was kind of in a different form, but it was essentially the same. But the thing is, like, what do Las Vegas audiences want? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, we're lucky right now. We're giving it to them in a variety show, but I don't like when shows close. A lot of people work really, really hard. That show's a little different because it came in from outside. We're lucky with Esther Goldberg because it's an organic show. It's created here and produced here.
Right.
Michael had done the Paul Lynde show here before. But, shows come up here organically and they don't make it for whatever reason, or they do, but it's like, what do these audiences want? Now, obviously you create the show, you want to get it out there. It's dense. There's a lot, you get off the plane, there's a lot of advertising.
Yes.
So unless you get off the plane, Celine's going to be here, or Jerry Seinfeld's filling in, or Reba's going to be here, and all the Cirque shows because they're kind of brand crushers across the board. The Carrot Top is here because he's been here for a long time and has a great following. but what do you give an audience? You know, how do you break through? I'm just, you know, I'm wondering myself, how do you make a show a long running show in this town? You know?
Well, and that's, my wife and I have been, like, we've been to the big shows. We've been to Cirque shows. We, you know, went to Baz when it was here and, you know, the big production shows. But what we're finding now is we really like those smaller, more intimate shows.
Yeah.
It's a lot more fun to be, you know, and I guess because we're here enough. So it's nice to be able to arrive here without really having a plan. And just going, okay, what do we want to go see?
Yeah.
And, you know, you go jump online, go through a website and look and see, or just, you know, through the property listings to see what's happening and what's playing. Or even just the talent in this city is so amazing to just be able to go for a walk at night and pop in and out of lounges.
Yeah. Yeah.
and get blown away by some of the performances. It's just amazing.
Yeah, my friend Sarah Hester Ross does dueling pianos.
Yeah.
She's incredible and really funny. Like she could be an actress.
Yeah.
But here you have her musical abilities and her piano abilities and this encyclopedic memory of all these songs. And when you go, and I'm sure you sat in at the Paris where they do dueling pianos and some of the other places too, that you're like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's great.
Yeah.
You know, and there are a lot of great lounge acts. And you have somebody like Zoe Bowie. Chris is so entertaining. So entertaining.
Well, and being able to just wander into, you know, Cleopatra's Barge.
Yeah.
David Perico string group.
Right.
And oh my God, like one night my wife and I were out here and it was the same thing. Somebody said, have you been there yet? No, you need to go.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm at now with this. Like I say, the big productions and these massive productions are great and fun, but I would much rather go and see a smaller production
where they're going to talk to you, interact with you. Did you see Cocktail Cabaret?
No.
That was a great show. Super talented. Daniel Emmett was in that. He went on to he was in the finals of America's Got Talent.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was insane. Like people were just wanting to. Before he started on that, we had seen the show because we know him and we know some of the other people in the cast, and it was just these are like mega talented people.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy, you know, the band is incredible, and they're right there. They're like literally right in front of you.
Yeah.
And they're talking to you like the next song that's coming up.
Yeah. John, I just want to say, I mean, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
This has been fantastic. To come in and, like I say, see the operation.
Right.
And
the command center here in Las Vegas.
See how the sausage is made, so to speak. I mean, it's, you know,
tremendous sausage, the best, only the best. Believe me.
You took me through everything, and it's been fantastic to chat and to talk, and I really appreciate it.
Great. All right, man. Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you.
We're shaking hands, folks, just so you know.
For the listeners, we just shook hands. Don't forget, John Di Domenico's Trump Show can be seen on Facebook Watch at Fake Trump Show. You can listen to John as Trump on Slate.com's Trumpcast. Catch his streaming special, Fake News, A Trump Story, on Amazon Prime. And if you're in Vegas and you want to see John live, head to Esther Goldberg's Totally Outrageous Brunch. It goes every Saturday and Sunday in the Sayers Club at the SLS, and you can get your tickets at totallyoutrageousbrunch.com. That pretty much wraps things up for this episode of the show. As always, if you've got feedback or comments about this episode of the show, or you've got Vegas-related questions, feel free to get in touch via social media at Jeff Does Vegas or email me directly at jeff@walkernewmedia.com. Before I let you run, as per usual, there are a few things I want to quickly plug. First off, my fellow Vegas podcasters, MJ and Bree, over at the Keeping It Casual podcast, are hosting their first ever live show coming up on Saturday, April 27th. If you're going to be in Vegas and you want to hang with a couple of cool Vegas girls for a fun night of conversation and maybe some wine, head over to keepingitcasualpodcast.com for info and tickets and to check out their awesome podcast. If you find yourself in Vegas on a Friday night and you're looking for a great evening of entertainment, head out to the Piazza Lounge in the Tuscany Suites and Casino and check out my very good Vegas friend Kenny Davidson as he hosts Kenny Davidson's Celebrity Piano Bar. Kenny and his band are accompanied by different Vegas performers every week, and you never know who's going to show up. It happens every Friday night starting at 8:45. Another one of my very good Vegas friends, Lisa Marie Smith, is back home in Vegas, taking her new music project LMS around town and performing all over the city. If you want to keep up to date on LMS, follow Lisa on Twitter and Instagram at @SingLisaMarie. And if you want a sample of her amazing musical talent, her self-titled debut EP is streaming on Spotify and Apple Music and is available for download on iTunes. The links are available in the show notes at jeffdoesvegas.com. And I make no secret on this show about my love for The Space, an awesome off-strip venue over at Polaris and Harmon, where they've got some amazing shows coming up, including Police Academy star and man of 10,000 sound effects, Michael Winslow, making his return to The Space coming up April 27th. Travis Clower, the star of the Tony Award and Grammy Award-winning Broadway show Jersey Boys. He's coming back to The Space on May the 10th. The girl of 1,000 voices, Christina Bianco, she brings her show Me, Myself, and Everyone Else to The Space for 2 shows on June 8th and 9th. And if you're going to be in Vegas anytime in October, make plans to be at The Space for Evil Dead the Musical HD, running from October 2nd to the 27th. Tickets and info for all these shows available online at thespacelv.com. And don't forget about Monday's Dark at The Space. Twice a month, host Mark Chinook is joined by his Vegas friends for a night of music and more as they raise $10K in 90 minutes for a local Vegas charity. Tickets start at just $20 and are available online along with charity and info show dates at mondaysdark.com. As for my upcoming trips, the next one isn't penciled in until mid-June, meaning I'm going to be going through some serious Vegas withdrawal. As such, I'll be living vicariously through all of your Vegas trips. So, if you've got questions on planning your Vegas vacation, or you want suggestions and advice on where to stay, where to eat, what to do, feel free to hit me up via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at JeffDoesVegas, or email jeff@walkernewmedia.com. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening to the show. Be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know the moment a new episode is uploaded. And make sure to check out jeffdoesvegas.com for show archives, the audience survey, and info on the Jeff Does Vegas patron program. Thanks again. My name is Jeff, and this has been episode 18 of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast, a Walker New Media production.